Welcome to the Pitbull Patty Show. This season, we're inviting you to take the Lit Grit Challenge by reading great literature just 1 hour a day, 52 books in 52 weeks to give you the grit you need to succeed. Hey everybody, Pitbull Patty here with the Pitbull Patty Show. Today, we're going to talk about a book that's, I think this book is great for somebody that, what are you giggling for?
This is a great book. It's a fascinating book. It's such an interesting book.
I say it every time.
Every week.
I do. Whatever.
Well, they're all good books. That's why we're doing them.
That's why we're doing this. Taking the time out of our really busy schedule to do these books.
Chaos.
It is total chaos right now for both of us. But, this book I think is great because, everybody always asks about real estate, don't they? And they ask about investing, and they watch either HGTV and they see all these flip shows, or they hear some buddy of theirs or somebody they know that has investment properties, rental properties, or flips.
Right.
So this book, this Real Estate Investing by Eric Tyson and Robert Griswold, I got this at Barnes & Noble. I thought this book was great and I've given this book out before to people that, clients that are like, hey, I'm very serious about investing. I really want to buy an investment property. This is just kind of I would say a 101 type of book.
Yeah, it's kind of like real estate investing for dummies.
Exactly, that's a good way to put it. Yeah. I wonder if there's there's probably actually.
Oh, there definitely is.
Yeah, it's kind of a dummies for everything, isn't there?
Yeah.
But
there's a lot of dummies.
Yeah, well, that too. But this book, I think, is great because it talks about, financing. It talks about, valuing properties, your team, which would include not only your realtor, but,
your
home inspectors and
your lender.
Yeah, definitely. And I know, and actually, this is so appropriate that we're doing this book today.
Yeah, I'm looking a little disheveled today. I got some paint on my sweatshirt, dust all over my shoes and jeans. I was actually just coming from the house I bought last month. That needs a lot of work. That me and John, my dad, are totally doing the flooring, redoing all the flooring and drywall, painting, everything, and we demoed the kitchen, and then we actually just got the cabinets delivered yesterday, so that's gonna get done here pretty soon in the next couple of days.
So it's nice to talk about kind of the investment. Because you've got another property that you rent out, so you're a landlord.
Yeah, it's pretty timely, this book, since we're, I do have, I bought my second home in North Beach. My first home's in North Beach on 3rd Street and 2nd Street. And I love North Beach. Some of my friends joke that I'm the unofficial mayor of North Beach because I'm always trying to sell it, and I'm talking it up quite a bit because I really do love North Beach. I moved back here from New York City. Those of you who don't know, that's where I met Rose, my fiance. So coming back from New York City, moving back to Calvert County, I really set my sights on North Beach because living in New York, I walked everywhere, didn't have a car. And that's one thing I love about North Beach is you can walk to Hook and Vine, Plaza Mexico, Mama Lucia's.
Church.
Walk to church. You can walk to Neptune. So, you got some really good restaurants. And shoot, a couple of those have opened since I actually moved back. So, Catch-22, you can't quite walk there, but...
Yeah, you got that town feel. But so an investment property, and actually, one of the things to keep in mind too, sometimes people don't realize when you buy an investment property, I personally think I have my own opinion about certain things, and one of them is, unless it's an unusual property, it's really a smart idea to buy a property that doesn't have a big yard, which of course the town lots don't have big yards, but that just anywhere, if you're buying, I don't care if you're in Alabama, it's nice if you don't have to where if they don't mow it, so the tenants aren't mowing it, and then you got to get over somebody out there to mow it, or there's a vacancy rate, or you just bought it and you're rehabbing it, and you got this big, property, this big amount of acreage. We've got property in our area that have 3 acres that are mowable. That's a lot.
It's something to think about, because that's not something you would typically think about when you're talking about an investment or. Either to flip or to hold on to and rent. Right.
Some of the things that people don't think about. And then thinking about, being a landlord. Now, you're obviously now experiencing and have been. Yeah. You've been lucky to have excellent tenants, but, you can hear some horror stories. I've had a few over the years, your dad and I, with some really, really not the best tenants. Our first set of tenants we had, 30 years ago. They were I don't know what happened, but the They were wanted by the police. The husband, I'm not even kidding you.
All right.
We didn't know that until they vacated the property.
So they didn't do a background check, I guess.
Well, this was years ago. You couldn't just go online and do background checks. So actually, that's a good point. I mean, today, you are so lucky if you're going to be a landlord today.
Yeah.
Do your due diligence. It's so easy.
Mm-hmm.
There are all kinds of sites online.
Smart Move? Is that the one?
Yeah, My Smart Move and all those. You have a lot of, there's a bunch of them, actually.
Yeah,
There's
but
not
it does
just
make
one.
it easy. You could get a background check and a credit report all in, one one spot.
And several other sources of multiple different areas where you can go online and do searches on credit and criminal history.
Sure.
You can do case searches and make sure that, you can do all that. So that's just smart to do. And if you don't, then shame on you if you have a problem later. But the guy, the first tenants we had, we went back to the house. They vacated it, sent us the keys in the mail. I mean, well, because this was, like I said, it was 30 years ago. So it was like, it seems like a million years ago now. And we go to, your dad and I are at the house and we're repainting the windows. We're like, because they just needed it and touching it up and getting it fixed back up so we could re-rent it. And then the police come by and then like asking your dad for his license and who he is. They thought he was the tenant.
Turns out he was wanted for something else.
He was wanted. He was wanted. This guy, the tenant, was wanted for grand theft auto. Yeah, and not only that,
not just the video game.
Yeah, well, that was before the video game, and so he was into like cars and all kinds of stuff.
Sure.
And he left this ginormous, like, what are those, like 18-wheeler tractor trailer, like tires, and then like the rim that's like the metal thing the tire goes around in the driveway, like literally this ginormous thing. Let me tell you, that's not easy to get rid of. It's like extremely heavy to even get it on your truck. If you
Lord have mercy.
I mean, it's just, and then they left like all this trash in the house. There were bugs everywhere. They stole the refrigerator. Why? I don't know. I mean, if they hightailed it out of town, what are you going to do with the refrigerator? I don't know. I don't know.
Put the stolen fridge in the stolen car.
I don't know. It was crazy. So, but that was, in prehistoric times. Now, when I think about, compared to today, you can really check people out and, get referrals of people. Sometimes you can.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely.
See who you're renting to, because the last thing you want to do is have somebody.
Yeah, and there are some real horror stories. I mean, I had a client that just bought a house, and he was telling me that he had an investment property. They put all this, blood, sweat, and tears into it, and fixed it up really nice. And they had a tenant in there, and by the time they moved out, I mean, the house was trashed, and they ended up having to let the house go because it was literally beyond repair. I mean, it was kind of crazy, some of the stories you hear. So I was really lucky. I actually rented my house out to a former client of mine who was actually building the house. They had sold their house, so I just did a 6-month lease with them, and now I've got a new tenant in there. And
military, I think, right?
Yeah.
So that's nice.
And that's not a bad idea. We've got a lot of military in there. Obviously, you can't discriminate who you're going to rent to. There's fair housing laws and everything like that. But all things being equal, if you can, with there being so many military bases and personnel in the area, that's a great idea. And
they're going to be here like 3 years typically.
Right, and so they're not necessarily looking to buy because they're in a fluid situation. But the great thing about them is they've got the housing allowances, so they're going to be able to pay their rent every month, which is really great.
Well, and one thing to note, I think, about rental properties that, just in diving into this conversation or this topic a little, I think that sometimes landlords that I know make the mistake of, kind of thinking I can be just a crappy landlord where they're just like, they don't take care of, they don't have a nice product. They just think, I'm going to get all this rent and I'm going to hardly do anything and I'm not going to, be a good landlord. If you're going to end up being, and this isn't obviously talking about flips at the moment, but if you're going to talk about taking on a property, whether you rehab it or whatever you're doing, and then you put it out there for rent, if you're going to be a landlord, be a good landlord.
Right.
If you want good tenants, be a good landlord. So I feel really strongly about that because I've seen some people that are thinking, like, they don't want to fix anything.
Right.
They don't clean anything before.
I mean, if you don't have a nice property, then you're going to attract, you're not going to be able to charge as much, so you're going to be dealing with lower net worth individuals. And
so it kind of sometimes, not always, of course, there are exceptions, but kind of goes hand in hand. If you put in nice countertops and have it nice and clean and keep the appliances to where they're,
tied into the tipping point, the power of context. You have a really nice house, then they're likely to take better care of it. And if it's really dilapidated, then they're not going to care.
Like
they're
the broken window thing.
Right. This is broken window theory. So nice little segue.
Nice. That was nice. I like that. I'm impressed. No, that's true. I definitely think that's true. So you get good tenants that tend to value and appreciate that you put loving care into having, nice finishes, clean, fresh carpet, fresh paint, all those kinds of things. So don't be kind of a slumlord. Don't have that be your goal, right? So now that's talking about like holding property. But what about flipping? What do you?
Yeah, well, and then there's a lot of different strategies when it comes to this. There's hard money loans. There's rehab loans, which.
Well, what's hard money? So people know. I know what it is, but just tell.
Well, should tell.
Well, hard money is like this is how I look at it. That I don't. I mean, you could look it up, but it's really money that's not like where you go to a traditional lender, going to a bank and filing your. It's typically, hey, this guy over here, Rocco, does hard money loans. I'm kind of being flippant about it, but I mean, really, seriously, hard money is kind of the untraditional path of money, and you tend to have
much higher interest rates.
Yeah, higher interest rates, but you have less. Restrictions or requirements as far as your credit line, not your credit, your credit score qualifications, things like that. So
so that's one avenue. Another is the rehab loan avenue, and so 203K, it's a FHA product. That's the one that everybody knows. But there's actually a lot of conventional rehab loans, which depending on your situation, depending on your credit score, the conventional rehab loans you need a higher credit score. So they're a little more restrictive in terms of who can qualify. But I think those are maybe even a better product, depending on your situation.
Yeah, and I would say since we're talking about for people who are just wanting to get into investing, even if they maybe have one property, but they're looking into getting into more, or they've never bought an investment property and they're really seriously thinking about it and wanting to know more, that's who we're talking about. My message to them would be go, do your due diligence, get a good realtor who knows what they're doing with, investment properties, whether they have them or don't have them, but they have experience with clients that have had them.
And ask him about their experience with rehab loans specifically, because I mean, they're not that common. So it's important to have a realtor that actually knows what the heck they're doing.
And has...
regardless of whether it's a rehab loan or a general sale. But.
Well, that's true. But also somebody, a realtor that can hook you up with a really good lender that could then steer you, okay, this is the type of... here's your options. And here's how much money you'll need and things like that. Because on an investment property... since it's not going to be your primary residence, you're going to have a higher interest rate, and typically you're going to have to put down more money.
Right.
So they'll walk you through all of that. So get all that information, and then go with your realtor to start looking at some properties, and
that's an investment. But you can also do a 203K loan and make that your primary residence and more of a long-term investment.
Well, that's true. You could
versus a flip per se.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say also a good piece of advice would be if you're looking for an investment property, most people will be saying, well, I really want to buy a foreclosure. And what they really mean is they want to buy something that's a fixer-upper they can get a good deal on. My opinion is don't overlook the mom-and-pop existing home seller that, they could just be some older couple that has a house actually with great bones.
And that's already paid off. So they've got a lot of equity. Those sometimes
that's very dated.
Right. Those sometimes can be actually the best value.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
So I think that's great advice. I think that's great advice not to kind of, get tunnel vision on a foreclosure or get pigeonholed into just looking for foreclosures, because like you said, a dated home that someone's lived in for a long time and cared for, but it's just dated. And it might be totally paid off, so that's actually where you can negotiate a little bit more and actually possibly get the best deal.
Because they have some equity.
Right.
Yeah, people look past that a lot, I think, but older people, I mean like really old people, tend to take the best, generation tended to take the best care of their homes where, they paid attention to the mechanicals, to the roof, to make sure that everything was
and older
operating.
Generations are typically a lot more handy too, to where they're able to maintain their homes a little bit better because they're a little more skilled in a wide range.
Yeah,
of
you
things.
contrast that to people your age, the millennials. My generation is probably somewhere in between, but the millennials are like, we just want granite countertops. We just want stainless steel appliances, right? I mean, am I wrong? I know. They're just like in love with the finishes.
Yeah, and that is, it's so funny when I go out with clients and they're like, I want a fixer-upper, and then you show them fixer-uppers and they're like, oh, I don't want nothing to do with this. What they really mean is that I want somewhere I can just put new carpet in and paint. That's a lot of people's definitions of a fixer-upper. So that always kind of cracks me up.
Exactly. So you definitely need to do an assessment of if you're not that handy, which a lot of people are not. And so you either need,
regardless of their generation.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's not pick on millennials too much.
Okay, that's true. That's true. Although I haven't met a whole lot of millennials that are super handy, but I'm sure there are some out there, right?
I don't know how many millennials you know.
Maybe not enough. I don't know, but I think that's an assessment that somebody needs to make. If you're serious about actually wanting to buy an investment property to either flip or hold, doing an assessment. Okay, what can I do, and then what am I going to hire somebody to do?
And be realistic with yourself and what your abilities are. I mean,
yeah, because I've seen a few flips where people in our area
do a lot of it themselves,
and they look like
and
crap.
You can tell.
Yeah, they just really look
shoddy. That's the old hairy homeowners. That's what we call them. When they do a lot of stuff. Contractor. Do a lot of stuff themselves. So
they're not.
Yeah.
Well, is there any other advice you would give before we kind of wrap up? I know this is kind of
it's a quick one.
It is a quick one, but I wanted to address it because we're trying to cover books that will help people,
advance themselves.
Yeah,
personal development or managing their finances better, or being able to
money, which
buy
an
investment property, get some passive income. That's something that I really would like to do. I'd really like to sell my first home, but I had to get it rented out in order to use the loan I was going to use to buy the second home because it's a primary residence. I'd really love to buy another investment property by the end of the year. It's probably a little ambitious since I just bought one.
So that's on your goal list.
Yes, absolutely. So, because my goal is really to have 2 different investment properties where the passive income essentially covers my mortgage of the house I'm living in now. That's my ultimate goal by the end of this year. I'd really like to be able to do that. That way, all the houses I sell and the money I make, I can really start to build and get ahead, knowing that hey, my mortgage is paid for on passive income. So I think that's a really good way to get ahead. And I think we kind of talked about it before was something that your dad, my grandfather used to say, and he never said it to me, but you kind of passed it along, was, you're never going to get rich off your salary.
Yeah.
So you're never going to get rich saving, a biweekly paycheck. You've got to add to your revenue streams, and you've got to be able to invest in either real estate or the stock market, make investments, you take advantage of compound interest, etc. That's how you're going to get ahead and really become, successful and wealthy. You're not just going to. Rose always likes to get on me about my Dunkin' Donuts habits, and I always tell her, I say, look, if I spend $3.50 a day at Dunkin' Donuts and I sell one more house a year because I'm properly caffeinated, it pays for itself 10 times over.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, so
that's good.
I'm not gonna deprive myself of my Dunkin' Donuts in the morning because I'll just sell one more house.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, hey, and plus, if that's what, if that's your little luxury in life, then, you got to have something that fuels you.
Yeah, that's right. That's
more than one way.
It's an energy cold brew, a shot of espresso.
You should do a Dunkin' Donuts commercial.
I should.
Well, you kind of just did. No, I think that's actually really good advice. To make investments is great. Know why you're doing it. Are you doing it so that you can flip, so that you can take that money and then invest it into something else, whether it's other properties or it's another business or something, or to raise funds? Are you doing it for that reason? Are you doing it because you're my age and you're thinking, okay, I want to have a certain amount of properties and then have them paid off by the time I'm, 65 years old and I have investment income that's coming in on properties that are paid off? you need to know what's your motivation, what's your goal to do it for. Is it hold, flip? What are you doing? And one other piece of advice I would give for somebody looking to make investment properties, if you're planning on buying a property to hold, I'm a firm believer in the 15-year mortgage. I really like a 15-year mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
Like Dave Ramsey talks about that a lot in his books.
Yeah.
And, you're going to pay so much less for that property in the end that, and if it's $400 more a month, which is a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so I'm not, saying that's not a lot of money. But if it's $400 more a month, you'll get used to it. And if you build it in and, do it now, and then you're going to have that house paid off either in 15 years or have so much of the, so much more principal and equity in that property over a short amount of time.
Absolutely. And another thing you can do is if you feel like the 15-year mortgage is a little too ambitious for you, you're worried about your monthly income, because a lot of people have set monthly income. So that's why it's important to add to your revenue streams. Get a side hustle, whatever.
Side hustle.
Yeah. Yeah. Another thing you could do, though, is just set up your mortgage to be paid on a biweekly basis. If you do that, you're going to get an extra mortgage payment by the end of the year, which on a 30-year mortgage is going to shave 7 years off of your 30-year mortgage. So you'll be able to pay it off in 23 years. That way you're maybe not overextending yourself by putting it on a 15-year mortgage, but that way you can still get that principal paid down more quickly. And, by doing it on a biweekly basis, paying half of your mortgage every, 2 weeks.
And actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because that is something that I did want to mention. If you have a property in either a lower income property area or in an area where it's harder to get good tenants that have set salaries and that kind of thing, and they live a little closer to the edge. If you have a rental property in that type of situation, one way to really keep your tenants current as far as paying their rent and you getting your rents paid is to actually collect. If they get paid every other Friday, say, you collect the rent half a month at a time, every other Friday.
That's a great
idea. Then instead of waiting at the one time a month, they've already spent that money.
Right.
And, they're living close to the edge kind of thing, or money's just tight.
And the reality is that, unfortunately, I think it's over 50% of people in our country live paycheck to paycheck. So there are a lot, chances are your tenant isn't going to have, some big nest egg or, savings account to where if they were to fall behind on something or whatever. So I think that's great advice.
Yeah, and it's easier for them too. They appreciate it. I have clients who've done that. A lot of properties in Baltimore, some of the areas where, the tenants, that's what my clients have done, where they have their tenants pay.
That's really good advice.
Yeah, every other week or even once a week. But if you do it every other week, then it's a lot easier for them too. Because it's just taken right out of their paycheck, and then they don't go spend it and then not have it when the end of the month comes or whatever.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
Well, let's wrap this up.
Sure.
I'm gonna show what we're gonna be doing for this next week. This book, I'm in love with every one of these books. They're kind of like children. So, Pitch Anything. Oh my gosh, I don't know how you say this guy's name. It's Oren Klaff or Klaff, Klaff. I think this is an excellent book. Just totally different. We're obviously doing all self-improvement, self-development, but also some money-related things.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
because money, you need money.
Yeah.
Everybody needs money. You got to be able to pay your bills, make some money, to be able to live and prosper. So that's why we want to include those. But this one, Pitch Anything, we'll talk more about it next week. You'll have to, but it's excellent book. So, all right. Well, check us out on iTunes. If you like iTunes, I like to tell people that you can subscribe so that it notifies you when we do another episode. We try to have them done every Friday. That's been our goal, and hopefully we can stick to it.
I think we've hit it.
We have, I think. It's been tough, and it's going to even get tougher
Lord
when we're
knows
moving.
It's been tough. Yeah.
Yep. But it's important. And, you should tell real quick before we sign off. What will you tell me about that story about the guy who...
and speaking of side hustle, so there's a guy that, I actually started following him on Twitter, and then he's got a newsletter, like an e-newsletter. So, and he just, he's got an e-commerce business, which I think is great. I'd love to kind of start to dip my toe into that and just to add to revenue streams. but he sent an email out. I think it was a week ago, and it was he talked about how he grew up in a really small town, like a mountain town, and he didn't have access to a bunch of mentors or business people or whatever, and that one day he discovered books, and that it was a total game changer. He couldn't believe that all these successful people had literally just given you all this neatly provided information, edited, and made basically just for you, all this information and ways to get ahead. So he came out with a list of 20 of the books that were the most influential for him. And it was great because there were 4 or 5 of them were from the list that we're doing.
I was going to say at least.
The Power of Habit, How to Win Friends and Influence People, which is Dale Carnegie, who's got a bunch of great books. Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion, or is that right?
Influence. Yeah, we're going to be doing that one.
And there were another 1 or 2.
So
on
the
there
point
too.
is that it opened him up into this whole world of these amazing mentors that are right at your fingertips, and that's the whole point of the Lit Great Challenge, is for people to realize that the great minds are out there. They've written books, so many of them, right?
It was great, and it was just more social proof too, because he's somebody that is really successful and lives a totally kind of nomadic lifestyle. He's his own boss and doesn't surfs and snowboards all day, and got an e-commerce business that pays all his bills. He actually buys investment properties. He always talks about, he basically took his e-commerce money and then buys Airbnbs, and he's got a bunch of Airbnbs all over kind of the country.
And that's another topic. We will save that for another day.
Yeah, that would be a good one to touch
too.
on with investment properties.
We could, but we'll be talking
about some other. That's a whole podcast to itself. That
really is. That's a whole nother one. So we'll sign off for now. Have a great week. Glad you could join us, and happy reading.
All right.